So every time February comes around, I always get excited because I know it's that time of the year for our annual founder retreat. And that's where me, Zach, and Matt have a chance to go away and really take advantage of a chance to learn, similar to events like this. And we were at SaaStr, and it was buzzing. And part of that was probably because there was an open bar that started at 9 a.m., which was crazy. And one of the presentations that really stood out to me was by Dharmesh Shah, who's the co-founder and CTO of HubSpot. And the first thing that came up on his slides was this. And I was immediately engaged because I saw a probability statement. And he basically said that you basically have about 1% chance of succeeding in building a business. But then he added this. And basically what he was saying is that your chances of succeeding can be impacted in a negative way and also exponentially. And the first thing I thought was, what the hell does the N stand for? And that's where this came up. And this speaks to the reality in the startup space is that there's this stereotype that MBAs are going to basically drown your business. And the first thing that Dharmesh said was, well, wait a minute. He said that his co-founder and the CEO of HubSpot has his MBA. So I was like, okay, chances of succeeding just got cut in half. And then I realized that I have my MBA. So I turned to Zach and Matt, and the first thing I said was, sorry, guys. The interesting thing about HubSpot is not only does the CEO have his MBA, Dharmesh, who is the CTO, has an MBA. Their VP of product has an MBA. Their VP of engineering has an MBA, of customer, of sales. So basically, HubSpot's chances of succeeding were almost completely eliminated right off the bat. And Dharmesh had a theory, and this really resonated with me, is maybe not all MBAs are predisposed to startup cluelessness. And I think they actually proved this in a lot of ways because HubSpot ended up going public in October of 2014. And not only that, for them as a business, today they're worth over $2 billion. Now, you might think HubSpot is the exception, right? And the answer to this is no, they're not. You're wrong. In fact, 25% of all unicorns, now these are businesses worth over $1 billion, have at least one MBA on their founding team. And these are just some examples of some of these companies that are succeeding in the market today. Now, why does this resonate with me? As I mentioned, I do have my MBA. But even worse than that, I used to be a management consultant. So I am categorically the absolute worst hire for an early stage startup. And I actually saw this firsthand. I went into the market. I actually wanted to break into the startup space, and I saw so much friction. Everyone kept saying that you're a strategy guy. We're looking for people who can execute. And I thought, okay, maybe if I can't find a job, it's probably easier to just start a company instead. And I was fortunate enough to start Loopio with two of my amazing co-founders, and this was in early 2014. We have actually bootstrapped our way to 35 loopers and over 250 customers with absolutely no funding. And thank you. And earlier this year, I actually had a meeting with a VC, and during that meeting, he basically said, hey, Jafar, you're a management consultant, so you're the strategy guy. So I just smiled, nodded politely. Then he said it a second time. Frustration started to build up a little bit. Then it came up a third time, and I actually had to interrupt him. And I said, I was a management consultant for 1.5 years. I've been an entrepreneur for more than 3 years. I'm pretty sure I'm more of an entrepreneur than a management consultant. And I had to sort of look straight up in his face and basically be clear that we need to stop stereotyping people based on their educational backgrounds. And we have to think about that in terms of the community, and we also have to think about that as founders and as companies that are hiring as we're looking at new talent. And there's plenty of talent here who are looking to break into this space. Now let's talk about Tinder. So when you think about Tinder, you think about the superficial nature of looking at people's pictures and deciding people's fate. And when you look at someone's profile, like an investment banker, the first thing you might think is this person would be a horrible fit for a startup. So let's swipe left. And then you see a lawyer, and it's like, okay, I don't need a lawyer at my startup, so let's swipe left again. And now we look at an MBA grad. And this is where I think it's important for us as companies that are hiring to go beyond the surface level and actually dig a little bit deeper. The problem is there's so many people out here who are looking to break into the space, but you're not doing anything to actually go beyond the stereotype. And this is where I want to put an aside to the people who are looking to break in. We get an overwhelming number of applications at Loopio of people who say they want to work at a startup, but don't do anything about it. And this is what you can do. And this is actually something I did when I was a management consultant. I shifted all my work into digital strategy. I actually participated in a startup weekend and built a company over 3 days with a team. I started reading every startup book I can get my hands on, and I went to events. So you guys should do that too. And don't only just do that, actually highlight it as you guys are building your profiles. So when we get back to Tinder and we're actually looking at people, and we look at an MBA grad, and we actually go beyond the superficial and we click in, we actually get to learn more. You know, an MBA is typically looked as a generalist or someone who's strategic, but this is someone who's actually identified that and understands that startups need specialization. So he's mentioned SaaS sales, and he's proven that interest by volunteering, putting his money where his mouth is, and getting certifications, reading books. And by doing that and by sort of going beyond the superficial on both sides, if you end up swiping right, you actually might find the perfect match. Thank you.
Questions?
Nothing?
Okay, make me run.
Hi, would you extend your kind of principle of not hiring just based on people's academic background to other academic backgrounds? People aren't usually into like fine arts and humanities.
Yeah,
stuff like
absolutely. I think for us, we actually look at that explicitly in terms of how we review people's applications. You know, it's not necessarily writing a cover letter, but if you're writing your email and actually stating some of the things you're interested in your resume, actually putting things around conferences and events you're going to, even listing the books that you're reading and doing the homework on the company. Even at Loopio, we have a number of hires that would be considered non-traditional. We have people who are part of our customer success and support team who actually work directly in hospitality. We have salespeople who worked in insurance. So for us, we're actually looking for people to stand out in the crowd and not just necessarily lean on their educational background, but show that they're doing the things that actually prove that they want to make it work and have a hunger for learning. And that's what we found to be very successful. Just in terms of our model, we spend a lot of time on terms of coaching and onboarding, and we consider people who are passionate to be, and basically carry traits to be more success stories than people who might just have the education.
Last question of the night. Who wants it? Right here.
If you were to recommend one book, what would it be?
That's a tough one because it depends on what you want to break into. The thing I always harp on is always like specialization is really important for an early stage startup. Is that a book? No, it's not a book. So if you want to break into sales, especially early sales, a book that I recommend is Predictable Revenue. I think it's an awesome first read. I think The Lean Startup is a great book for anyone who wants to start a company. It's just great inspiration. And if you want B2B, Lean B2B specifically.
So 3 books are the one book you should read.
All 3 books. You should read them all at once. Yeah.
Thank you.